Anyone that knows me knows I'm pretty intense and I need to be doing something all the time. And I had no idea what agency recruitment was. So I just thought, you'd put an ad up and get people jobs. And I was like, yeah, I can do that. And I ended up having an almost six-figure first quarter.
Wow. Today we've got Sophie Mieglitz from Frontline.
About 2 years ago, was managing 4 franchises. I said to Sarah, I actually don't want to do this anymore. I want to go back to billing as well. I make everyone do a disc profile. I find when I've had people that are a bit more compliant or steady, they don't keep the pace, unfortunately, and they're way better in something like tech or health, and you need to hit your KPIs. Getting the stats is all good, but doing the good work for the good stats equals good results.
Welcome, Sophie.
Hi, glad to be here.
I'm looking forward to getting to know you a little bit, learning about your journey. It's been a good morning so far, having a few minutes before the podcast, so let's get into it. Let's go right back to the beginning. You've been in recruitment about 5 years or so now?
Yes, 5 years next week.
Amazing. Let's go back 5 years. Tell me about how you got into it.
Well, I worked in retail in Melbourne and had gone through one lockdown and so didn't have a job, obviously. And anyone that knows me knows I'm pretty intense and I need to be doing something all the time. So we got to second lockdown and I was like, at home, losing my mind, was like, all right, what's next for me in retail? I don't want to be an area manager. I'd just come off the back of hiring 250 casuals for, peak trade for the business I was working for, and was like, oh, maybe I'll do recruitment. And I had no idea what agency recruitment was. So
you just thought about recruitment. It didn't come to you.
Yeah, but I didn't know that agency recruitment is what it is. I just thought, you'd put an ad up and get people jobs. And I was like, yeah, I can do that. So I'm like putting my application through to like tech recruiters, blah, blah. And then where I'm from originally in Melbourne, there's this family called the Vocklers and everyone kind of knows who they are. And I saw this ad and it was retail recruiter Sarah Vockler was the hiring manager. So I called her and I said, hi, my name's Sophie. And she said, let's jump on FaceTime. And she's like, I like the look of you. Do you want to start next week?
And it was easy as that. This was in COVID, right?
Well, yeah. Then a week later, we went back into lockdown. And Sarah said, I'm just going to get you started anyway. So the industry was closed for my first 2 months. But because I had that backing from the year before that we were in COVID, I wouldn't say sweet talked, but I'm going to use sweet talked my clients into preparing them for when everything opened. We knew it was going to be a boom. So I was like, let's get your teams onboarded now. Let's get them ready to go. So when the stores open again, you've got a ready to go team. And I ended up having a almost six-figure first quarter.
I was going to say, weren't you Rookie of the Year?
I did make Rookie of the Year. I think it was close to 70 placements in my first year, yeah.
And you just thought this recruitment thing's easy.
Yeah, I was like, this is easy. I had my agency manager at the time got pregnant. So I ended up taking on her desk and I had almost 200 jobs on my desk.
200 jobs. I mean, you can't deliver, well, surely you can't deliver all those jobs. So how do you manage that kind of volume?
It's just about being transparent, isn't it, right? So when I talk to a retail client, I get them to kind of give me their entire vacancy list in my region that I recruit for and say, I'm fee for placement only, obviously. So just give me your 10 jobs. And if I fill 30% of them, that's 3 that you don't have to fill. So just always transparent, every week giving updates. This is where we're at. This is what I'm seeing in the market and just working with pace. Yeah.
That's awesome. And you come across as the kind of person to work at pace. So were you always doing perm or is it a lot of contract workers or temp kind of?
I only have ever done perm.
Perm, okay. Yeah. So do you remember your first placement?
5 days in, I'm teaching myself everything at home. And my boss, Sarah, God love her, she is very dominant, direct. She says, Sophie, I need you to make your budget this month. What are you going to do? And I'm like freaking out. So I have, they give me like 5 of the worst jobs, of course. And I'm going through what I've kind of taught myself in our database, find this guy, Rookie, give him a buzz, sort of talk to him about where he's come from. This business that I'm working with, it was kind of like more of like a heritage kind of Australian business. And he loved it. They loved him. And I actually placed with this business a few weeks ago and he's still in his role.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
When did you realise you were pretty good at this?
I think it was 3 or 4 weeks in. I had a pretty big forecast and
what was it?
About 100K.
Nice.
Yeah. We went through our forecast every morning and no one else in the team had that kind of result. And I was like, oh. And then I've never made a quarter under 100K sort of from there. And And yeah, I guess I was like, oh, this is pretty easy.
Yeah. So 5 years in, you speak very fondly of the people who brought you into the business. Who would you say is the most influential person that has kind of brought you into the industry?
Yeah, I mean, it would be Sarah. She bought Frontline's first franchise back in, can we be saying this, 1998, which was Melbourne Retail. She left and then she came back in 2021, the year she hired me. And she kind of taught me, I came into the business very, I'm just going to talk about the disc profile for a second. I always talk about disc. So I came in very influential in my approach to things, but that also meant that I cared a lot about what other people think. And she's taught me to become a lot more dominant. So now I'm like 60% dominant in the disc profile, but it sort of has taught me a lot of resilience. A lot of just like your motivation comes from doing, just pick up the phone, just do it.
She's really shaped you into this.
She's really shaped me.
Incredible.
And she's also, like, I'm a bit loose and a bit rogue, and I've learned kind of to be myself, and that brings results because people respond quite well to that, and that's what Sarah's kind of like as well.
So you moved pretty quickly through the ranks with Frontline. So I think you said Rookie of the Year in your first year. You moved into an agency manager after about 10 months. Is that right? Tell me about that. How did that come about?
Like I said before, my agency manager at the time, Bianca, she got pregnant, and there just wasn't really anyone else ready to go, and I was having these great results, and I think that's a positive but can also be a flaw, that if someone's doing really well, they're like, oh, you should be a manager. So they threw me into the manager role, which was a bit overwhelming, I think, at the start, and that really grew as Sarah bought more franchises. She wanted me to manage more franchises. Eventually, she bought Sydney Retail, which is the founding franchise with Frontline. It's where everything started. So I flew up here to set it up, and I was like, oh, I like Sydney, and I moved here 6 weeks later.
Better than Melbourne.
Yeah, it's better than Melbourne.
Especially in lockdown. Melbourne's great, but yeah, at that time.
Yeah, that was it. It's just kind of expanded. I think there's been a lot of challenges, but I've really kind of found my strength in the industry that I do, so I really focused on managing those, and yeah.
Awesome. So it sounds like she's been really managing you and your career as well as the overall business, what she's responsible for. Yeah. Tell me a bit about Frontline as a business and why companies or retail businesses go to Frontline.
Yeah, so I think Frontline is, like I said, it's a franchise model. So they've got 50 or so franchises across Australia and New Zealand, categorised into retail, not just retail, but industry sector and location. So businesses will come to me at the moment because all I do is Metro Sydney, so Miranda to Warringah Mall down to, Parramatta, and I only do retail vacancies. There's someone else that does Wollongong and Canberra, etc. There's really localised specialists that are on the ground. We've also been around for over 30 years, so we've got a name for ourselves in the business, and I think everyone that works in the business is not the same, I guess, crazy energy as me, but really down to earth and really wants the best for their clients and their candidates, and we work together in a way to, give a really good result.
That's the business. This is you. Tell me a bit about when you stepped into more of a leadership role and how you said initially that, there's lots of aspects that were quite difficult. But how did you manage that? Was it very self-taught? Did you get a lot of guidance from Sarah or anyone else in the business?
It was a lot of self-taught. I think a lot of my journey has been self-taught, and I initially probably didn't want to take any advice from anyone.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think that's been a bit of a learning curve, that you should always be a sponge. I didn't want to let go of my clients that I'd worked really hard to build relationships with, and then that obviously then saw my team not bringing in great results. But when I learnt to let go a little bit and build my team up, we doubled our figures in the first full year that I had, the Melbourne team. We hit back-to-back record years, and we created this really amazing culture. It was just like a vibe. Everyone would come in early on a Monday morning so we could have a coffee and chat about wild stories from the weekend. We'd finish up early on a Friday and go have a drink. We'd always do lunch together, but then when we were working really hard. We had this 5-day-a-week office vibe, and we were pumping each other, ringing the bell. We had a phase where... so bad, but we had a phase where if someone made a placement, I'd make them have a jelly shot from the fridge. It was just this really fun fun kind of vibe and really boosting each other up. And it meant
200 jobs on though, you'd have been hammered by the end of the day.
yeah, but by this stage, you know, two years in, I think I had a team of 10 in retail, plus I had 2 hospitality agencies that had 3 and 2 or something like that, a bit smaller. But it was just kind of this really fun energy. And when something bad happens, you know, you lose a huge placement, there was no storming around and leaving and wasting time because everyone would be like, oh, gee up, girl, let's do it again. Like, it was just, I think that was something that was really great. But then obviously the market crashed after COVID, and now we're back to the rebuild. Yeah.
So let's talk about culture for a bit then, because that is so important. Because as we all know, everyone listening to this call knows that recruitment is a very up and down kind of emotional roller coaster. How do you manage a team when maybe somebody in that team isn't quite aligned to the culture? Without naming people, but have you had that in your experience? Yeah.
Do you know, I've had. Like, not everyone that I have hired is a cookie cutter. We've got very varied backgrounds that have come in, and we had one girl that we'd call her the teacher because she was, you know, a lot more reserved and would tell everyone what to do. And then we had like another girl who's like one of my best friends that is just wild and loud and fun. So it wasn't, in terms of culture, it's not really a personality, but I did have someone once who probably could never catch on to that resilience piece. So when I remember one time she lost a big sale and she kicked up a fuss and left the office, and it was this huge debacle, and I had to kind of pull her into my office a few times and have those conversations about, you know, what recruitment's like, every minute counts, like, and say, you know, in the last half hour that you've been out, I've made 14 dials, I've picked up 2 jobs and I've booked a client meeting. Like, that's a really big missed opportunity for you. So really kind of worked with her in that aspect, and she didn't really get there. But
you did what you could do.
I did what I could, yeah.
Running a recruitment agency isn't for everyone, but that's exactly the point. Most people who start one are great recruiters, brilliant on the phone, deep in their market, performing at the highest level. So naturally, starting an agency feels like the logical next step. But being a great recruiter and being a great business owner are 2 completely different skills. One is about placing people, the other is about building systems, managing cash flow, hiring the right team, and making decisions that compound over years. What got you to the top of the desk won't get you to the top of the business. The people who build agencies that last, that scale, that generate real wealth are the ones that are willing to learn a completely different game. We've helped over 100 founders make that shift from great recruiter to great business owner. And we don't just point you in the right direction, we back you with an entire in-house team across finance, marketing, branding, and partner success to make sure you actually get there. If you're serious about building something of your own, let's have an honest conversation.
So for those recruiters out there now who are potentially looking at stepping into leadership role, what's a bit of advice you might have for them, like stepping into a new management role?
You've got to decide if you want to be a leader. So about 2 years ago, was managing 4 franchises, and I said to Sarah, I actually don't want to do this anymore. I want to go back to billing as well. So that's why I've now stepped into single agency management, which is just Sydney retail, because I love billing. Like, I love it. I love that whole process, and I don't just want to oversee people. So if you want to step into leadership, like, what are you willing to lose to do that? Do you want to just grow your career? Because you can still grow your career as a biller.
Just really make a conscious decision.
Really make a conscious decision, and don't just think of it as the title. Like, think about the whole journey and what your days are going to kind of look like and what's most important to you at work, yeah.
Would that be the biggest bit of advice you have then for someone, is just be really mindful of what you're stepping into, speak to other people, get a good read on it?
Yeah, and it's also, I mean, it's different businesses and different agencies are going to have that management role in a different way. Like, when I was managing Melbourne retail back in the day with a team of, 10, I wasn't billing. But now I've got a team of 3, and so I can bill. So it works better for me that way. But it's just about finding what works for you and making sure you're making that right decision.
So now that you've stepped back into a more hands-on with clients, with candidates, tell me about your relationships, how you kind of manage those. Have you got a vibe? And I kind of get the feeling you have. But tell me a bit about how your approach is, your philosophy of that.
Yeah, so I love to have like a coffee and a yap. Obviously, I'm a talker, so I want to come and meet you. And obviously, if their office isn't in Sydney, I can't do it in Melbourne, so we've got to get on Teams. But I'd prefer to be in person, and I want to talk business for 2 minutes, and then I just want to know about the person I'm working with, and vice versa. Like, I really believe in abundance, and I think there's a lot of business out there, and I don't need the monopoly. I want to work with businesses that want to work with me. So I think that's how I build really strong relationships is I build a vibe with someone and then they work with me. What's that? I'm so cringe, but that's saying people don't work with businesses, people work with people. Like, I really believe that, and that's how I build those relationships. And a lot of my candidates, like, come down to Bondi, we go get a coffee and go for a walk, and I tell them some crazy stories about my life.
We'll get to that.
Yeah. And some of my clients, like, I've got a client who was a franchise owner back in Melbourne, and he's loose as, wild guy, right? He moved to Sydney to start up a franchise up here, called me and was like, I haven't worked with you in 3 years. Who can I work with that's up in Sydney? And I was like, you're in luck, Tomo, it's me. And we've just got this amazing relationship. We met up in Bali, like, you know, so I'm really about, the vibe, the person, and looking just beyond the business.
Is there a placement or a relationship with a client that you've built that's kind of changed your opinion on this? And that's even like deciding you were going to be like that.
I don't think there was like one moment. I think it's kind of been compounding as I've worked in recruitment longer. I think I said before, I learnt to become a sponge. And as soon as I learnt to become a sponge, and again, there wasn't even one moment. I think it was just sometimes getting feedback, or just I'm always quite self-critical, and looking back, I'm like, oh, I could have done that better. And then more and more and more. And now eventually this is just who I am. And what I do. And I've kind of figured out what works for me, which I think is something really important that I say to my teams too. Don't copy what I do, just find what works for you.
I think you've had a really interesting time in recruitment because you've done big jobs back to a different level. You've had different experiences, which is amazing in 5 years because, you know, unfortunately, sometimes it's a bit more linear and you just plug your way up. So what do you think, knowing what you know now, that recruiters should be doing more of, like in day-to-day? Like if I'm just a recruiter in an agency, what should they be doing more of to succeed?
I think they just need to be a bit more real and a bit more transparent and be a person. I think recruitment still has it can be a bit of a dirty word for some places. So, just be honest in what you're doing and the results will come, I think, Do
you think, and I always used to think about this when I was in recruitment, I used to think about managing my own career like I would advise a candidate to manage their career. So after 2 years, I should be doing this and I should be pushing for this. Do you think that approach of trying to push yourself into different roles or let it happen organically?
For me, it's all really happened organically. I'm actually at a bit of a crossroads at the moment because I've got a potential opportunity that's been presented to me by the business, and it's really now, this is probably the first time I've had to really sit back and be like, oh, is this something I want to do? Whereas most of the time I've been really lucky that I've been like offered these opportunities. I was offered to move to Sydney, and I think the only time was when I said, Sarah, like I want to step back and just focus on Sydney for a bit, but otherwise, I've been a bit lucky.
Well, I think, it's kind of found you. It sounds like Sarah is working really well with you and helping your career. Are you almost paying that forward? Have you got people that you work with in that same way and you're trying to help them in their careers?
Yeah, we have someone in Melbourne who has been in and out of the business. She worked with Sarah back in the year 2000 again, sorry.
Hey, I was working back then, so don't it's fine.
But she left recruitment and came back, and then I said to Sarah, she's the one that should be managing Melbourne when I leave, and now she's managing and is on this growth trajectory. And then I guess now it's going to be in Sydney. If I take on this opportunity, that's kind of my next focus is who's going to be the next me. So I've been very particular about my hiring and the personality types that I'm hiring to really build that person into me.
Going back to your career, like where you're going, where does that go from here for you?
So I guess the next step for me with Frontline would be franchise ownership, which is what's being considered right now, and how I would do that and if I want to do that. I love billing and I'm nervous to step away from something I love doing, but I always want to do more. So that's probably would be the next step for me. But right now, I want to build this Sydney agency that I'm managing into what I had Melbourne as. So that's my biggest focus right now is to build a really high-performing team, really a bunch of retail encyclopedias like I am, and really passionate girls. Sorry, I love hiring girls.
Damn it.
Sorry. Just to kind of really be that go-to specialist in Sydney. So when I say that, I know I don't want every business to work with me, but I want to have a team of people so that if a business comes in and I don't vibe with them, maybe they want to meet my girl Liana, and
In like leadership, you typically either inherit a team or you build a team. Building a team always is a bit more straightforward because they're ones that you build and create. Talk to me about your experience of either inheriting versus building and the challenges you found with maybe both, or tell me a bit about that.
I've pretty much built all of my teams,
Yeah.
which is I've been really lucky to do that. But I think some of the challenges is when I first was trying to build a team in Melbourne, I was looking at people's backgrounds that were maybe similar to mine and not realising that there was that personality difference. So now when I hire, I make everyone do a DISC profile. I find retail recruitment is very fast-paced. It's volume, what we do most of the time. And so you really do need to be a DI or an ID in a DISC profile. I've found when I've had people that are a bit more compliant or steady, they don't keep the pace, unfortunately, and they're way better in something like tech or health. So that's been a really crucial part of the hiring process. And then the onboarding process, it's really important to get in person. I work at the moment at home 5 days a week. And I'm going to be changing that come August. But that's just because I think it's so important for them to hear how I am on the phone, come to client visits with me, see it in person rather than me just, yapping at them through a Teams call or something like that.
If someone's 2-3 years into their career, they're not necessarily a driver, that works for you, do you think that they should be searching out kind of cultures of teams to work for or companies? How should somebody use that information about DISC profiling for their career, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's got to be a mix of things. I think the first is you want to be passionate about the industry you're recruiting for. I think that's part of how I've been so successful is I know retail inside out and I know everyone in the industry. And then the second thing is if you are really steady and compliant, is sales really the right job for you? I think, it's very competitive and I think that sometimes I've seen people lose that competitiveness if they are a little bit more on that side of a DISC profile. That said, they may still have the competitiveness. So do you go for something that's a bit more boutique? Do you go for something that's maybe more executive? So it's about finding that niche that really works for you and your personality and not trying to put yourself into an industry that demands maybe something that you can't bring. Because I know if I was put into tech, I would not have the same.
You don't understand any of it for a start.
Yeah. What?
Well, that's a really important thing. People who niche into certain areas. Now, I think for you, it was very logical because that was your background. Yeah. But if someone's going into recruitment, hasn't really developed a niche at that point, where do you go from there? Is this maybe stuff you're just passionate about?
Well, I don't think it needs to be passion. I think like when I was interviewing for different places, I interviewed for tech and I've actually been, Sarah's going to kill me. I've had like construction recruiters that worked not in my business, but in the office that I've used to work for that tried to get me to come across them and they said, you would be great at construction. And it was definitely something that I considered because the fees are triple what they are in retail because they're like, your personality great, the tradies would love you. And I'm like, yeah, I bet they would. But I guess I have had the conversations with different industries and you can feel that vibe when you're talking to someone that is a tech recruiter and be like, oh, I can't see myself doing what you're doing. But, maybe they would talk to someone in health and be like, oh, like what you're doing is really, it's really great for people. And that's something that I'm passionate about. So it's about really, having conversations with people in the industries and finding what's your match.
You mentioned something there about obviously fees being higher in different areas versus retail. If you were to do it again, and Sarah, cover your ears, but would you do the same industry, do you think? Or do you think you'd probably look at something else? Because you can do recruitment and do recruitment well now. Would you look for something that's bigger fees?
Not really. I think like retail is something I'm quite passionate about too. I think it's a weird thing to be passionate about, but I just think I have so many amazing experiences from when I worked in retail for 15 years, right? So I've got so many experiences from there, from working with great people and once I worked with this girl and she was studying law and she just had like the best personality. And now she works in Mecca's head office because she worked through retail and realised that, what am I doing? Law's not for me, and has figured out how to build a career in this industry that sometimes people look at like, oh, it's entry level, blah, blah. So I still am so passionate about it. I think it would have been interesting to go into construction, but it's just not something I care about. So I would maybe be driven to get the results, but I wouldn't be as driven as something I'm as passionate about as retail.
So I want to kind of get into not confessions, but just talking a bit about, get a bit more personal in terms of kind of the best advice you've got in your career from anybody, or just something that kind of is unique to you, do you think?
A few years ago, we had some high up guy from the US that was talking about this learning thing called like the D profiles or something. And D1 means you don't know what you're doing. D2 means, you could figure it out. D3 means, yeah, you're all right. And D4 means you're perfect. And we're on this call with everyone in Australia and New Zealand, and I'm a year in, cocky as, I'm just one rookie of the year, And he's like, all right, client visits, who thinks they're a D4? And I was like, me. And then he was like, all right, how many client visits have you gone on? How many of them have you converted to a new contract? How many of them have you converted to a sale? And I was like, oh, maybe I'm not as good as I think. And I think that was kind of maybe, I said before there wasn't a turning point, but maybe there was. That was maybe the point that I was like, well, there actually is a lot more to learn. And now I actually don't think I'm a D4 or amazing at anything, because I can always get better. So I think that's probably the best advice, is like you can keep learning, yeah. Do
you have anybody in like your team or teams in the past that have been like you?
Yes.
How did you manage that?
I had someone, she was having a belter month, like six-figure month, which in retail is pretty rare, to be honest, yeah. And I was like, this is great, like go girl. What's on the pipeline for next month? And she's like, I don't have time to do BD. When I had 200 jobs on my desk, I still did BD. So I was like, you need to keep doing it. Got to the end of the month, hadn't picked up a new role. Next 2 months, didn't make a sale. And then she came to me and we were like, doing her one-on-ones. And she was like, oh, I should have listened to you. And I was like, well, this is what it is. It's a journey. You've got to constantly do your recruitment cycle. So even if you've got all fires, cylinders burning, whatever that thing is over here, you still need to focus down here. So we just worked together, and eventually she ended up learning that whole cycle. But it was
almost let her just fall over.
Well, I can give you the feedback, but you're going to make your quarterly budget now, which is great, but you're going to miss out on heaps of commission because you could have made more money in the next 2 months if you just allocated 10 minutes a day to make 2 phone calls. Like, that's all it takes sometimes.
What do you think that the average recruiter should just never, and you might just say BD, it might be the easy answer, but they should just always make sure they find time for, always do, regardless?
You've got to do all of it. I'm pretty structured in my weeks. I'm full on. So Mondays, you need to call all your active clients. What are you working on? Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, you need to be downloading new profiles. You need to be connecting with new people. I say 20 to 30 a week because I obviously am doing volume. You need to be doing BD every day, an hour a day. And on Fridays, you need to make sure you got nothing open for the weekend. Like, that's my non-negotiables. And if I miss one of those things, the next week I'll see it, my desk will fall apart. And you need to hit your KPIs. But I never miss my KPIs, and that's why I always have getting the stats is all good, but doing the good work for the good stats equals good results.
I get the feeling from you that you would always get your BD done. So I want to talk about BD actually, because it's so important. It's never changed, hasn't changed since the 2000s when I started in recruitment. But how do you BD? Like, is it always calling? Are you using LinkedIn more? Because the world does change and things have changed. When I was in recruitment, it was just get on the phone. It evolved a lot, but how do you do BD?
It can be quite tricky with a business like Frontline as well, because there could be 8 retail consultants across Australia and New Zealand trying to pick up the same business. And I can see in the system that 7 of them have called them this week. I'm not going to be the 8th one to call them. I don't believe in spam BD. I never, ever will copy and paste an email, a copy and paste seek insights. That's just so not my style. But if I want to get onto someone, I might call, I might text, I might send an email, I might go on LinkedIn. If I'm having like a slower month in terms of roles coming in, I might allocate 3 hours where I'll print out I love a printout, old school, print out all the numbers and just dial. I think I said before, in that half hour, I always track my hours and my half hours. 14 calls, 2 jobs, 1 visit. That's pretty standard.
A day?
Well, if I need to do a dial like dedicated hour or half hour, I'll always get those kind of results from it, like every time. And just being consistent. And most of the time, I pick up 10 plus jobs a week without even really doing that much BD because I'm so consistent with it, and I just stay in touch and I'm like, oh, hey babe, how's the boyfriend? Yeah.
So Confessions. We can keep it kind of PC.
Yeah.
But is there any confessions you're aware of, heard in your time, any confessions that you would make? And it can be anything.
Oh, okay. What about?
We do two. Do you do one that we can actually air and then one that you can tell us when we turn it all off?
I think I've been guilty in the past of not telling my colleague that my candidate was on offer so that I could try and get the offer over the line in the background. This year, the candidate ended up getting the other offer and took the other one, but that didn't work out.
That's fair enough. That's a little bit of internal competition. Okay. That's very nice. That's a good one.
Yeah, it's not that
that's
bad,
all right.
yeah.
Final piece of advice for people out there. What's something you want people to be walking away from this episode thinking in their day-to-day in recruitment, how to aspire to be a good leader, become Rookie of the Year, just something that you can pass on?
I think just plan your day, work with passion, have some energy, and just get it done. And when you're not feeling motivated, just do it anyway. And then half an hour later, the motivations come.
Love it. And where can people find you? How would they find you to work with you as a candidate, as a client? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Add me on LinkedIn, I reckon. That's probably the best. Don't text me because I've got 500 unread text messages.
Oh, you're one of those.
Add me on LinkedIn. I post a selfie a week. You'll know what I'm wearing and what I'm doing. And I get back to every DM within 6 hours, I'd say.
Well, Sophie, it's been intense. It's been great. But thank you for sharing your journey. It's been great to meet you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.